Good afternoon, everybody. What is going on? I am Jeff GrantMEDIA. In today's real user review, we are going to be taking a look at the Rose Anvil boot breakers. Now, Rose Anvil did send me these as samples for review, but all the opinions in this video are mine and mine alone. I did not share this content with Rose Anvil prior to publication. They will see this when you do. Now, you're probably noticing there's 3 pairs of boots right here, and I started with 2. So the way this whole ball got rolling was I actually requested a pair of the foam 2mm boot breakers because I was about to order a pair of Iron Rangers. And there's a lot of content out there on Iron Rangers. I have some of my own, and they're notoriously difficult for breaking in. They take a long time, they're uncomfortable, which is, I believe, the reason that Rose Anvil came up with this very small, thin, 2mm thick piece of foam. It is meant to go into a heritage style boot much like this. That does take a little bit extra time, and some of that break-in period will kind of sway people away from trying some of these boots. If they try them on and they still hurt their feet after, a couple of weeks, some people are just going to move on, sell the boot, or just not wear it. So something like this gives you a little bit extra cushion without taking up any space inside the boot, because this is meant to go directly on top of the insole in the boot, and it just helps and aids in that break-in period. And that's the reason I reached out originally, and they asked if I want to take a look at the leather. So I said, yeah, sure, of course. I've got plenty of boots. I love Veg Tan leather insoles. Let's check them out as well. So originally, the Veg Tan leathers went inside these Craft & Glory Engineer Boot 2.0s because there was a little bit extra heel slippage in this boot than I liked. So I wanted to take up a tiny bit of space. So I tested fitted these, and I actually put one boot on with the Rose Anvil on top and one boot on with the Craft & Glory Veg Tan insole on top. And I found that the Rose Anvil were a little bit more comfortable, so I put these on top. But the problem, after about a week or so, I was quite loud. The Veg Tan leather insole on top of a Veg Tan leather insole, once your feet get a little warm, maybe get a little sweaty, it got really, really squeaky. So it was quite loud and a bit annoying. So what I ended up doing was I had gotten these Rhodes Boone Wedge Chelsea boots, and I have the same boot with the lug sole, and I had the same problem with the lug sole. Is the insole that comes in this, it's a foam back with a Veg Tan leather top, and it was just too thick for the boot. So I took the insoles out of here, and I took both of the pairs of insoles out of the Craft & Glory, and I put the Rhodes insole in the Craft & Glory, and then I just put the leather boot breakers into the Chelsea, and the Chelsea fit great, and the Craft & Glory fit great. So I basically swapped them out. So I did test inside these Craft & Glories for about a week or so, and then after that I just got too loud, so I took them out of the mix, and I just went with the Chelsea boot for the leather, and I continued to keep the foam in the Iron Ranger. And I will say, I thought it would take a couple of days for me to really notice the difference between the Iron Ranger without and then with the foam, and it was immediate. I could just feel it. They already felt just a little bit more comfortable, and it was great. I honestly put this boot on my foot with the Rose Anvil boot breakers in, and I could immediately feel that the boots were more comfortable. I really thought it was going to take maybe a couple of days of wearing these boots around to kind of feel the difference, but I could immediately feel that they were a little bit more comfortable. Now, I will admit that a lot of the reviews I was reading on the Iron Rangers, well, I don't think people were exaggerating because everybody's feet are different. Personally, I did not find these to be as bad as the break-in period was going to be. I was expecting these to be much, much worse than they were. Now, while these are still very far from being broken in, I've been wearing these for about 2 months or so now, mixing these with another pair of boots that a couple different pairs of boots that I've been testing and reviewing, but the break-in for these wasn't necessarily as bad as I was anticipating. But even that being said, these 2mm thick Rose Anvil boot breakers did make the break-in period much, much better. Again, still not completely broken in. These insoles will be going back into the boot, but was immediate. I noticed it. I was surprised at how quickly I noticed the difference of how they felt with the 2mm foam. It was crazy that this little piece of 2mm foam really made that much of a difference. Now, again, boots still have a ways to go to break in, so these will be going back in afterwards. But it was crazy. These tiny, thin piece of foam really did help quite a bit in aiding with the break-in. Now, I will say the only thing that I'm still having an issue with here, really, is it's on my right boot, the eyelets. You can kind of even see the eyelets, the tongue is digging in The eyelets are digging in. You can see that on the tongue. They're digging into my ankle, and it's starting to hurt a little bit. But don't worry, we have another Rose Anvil product that I think it should be here any day now to help to ail with that problem. We're going to get some Kilties in there, and I think that should help to take up a little of that extra, add a little extra cushion between the eyelets and the tongue, so it might not be uncomfortable on my ankle. But let's get into the leather boot breakers. So you can see they did really conform to my foot. They certainly are taking on the shape of my foot. And again, I had them in the other boots for about a week, so they were probably starting to break in quite a bit before I switched into the Chelsea boots. And I've been wearing these Chelsea boots probably more than I thought. I really like the wedge sole version. The lug sole, once I swapped the insoles, was incredibly comfortable, but the wedge sole, it's way more comfortable. So I've actually been wearing these quite a bit. These have been by the door, so it's like a slip-on. I did wear them to work a couple times. I did wear them to help a buddy move some furniture, and I dropped a chest of drawers on my foot. But the boot overall has been really comfortable since switching to these boot breakers, because again, the insole that came in them was so thick. It was comfortable and squishy, but it was just too thick for this boot. It was kind of made my instep too high, so my instep was rubbing on the top of the boot, and it was even cramming my toes in the toe box. So once I switched to the leather boot breaker, all of that issue kind of went away, and they're incredibly comfortable to wear. And I've been wearing them far more than I had. I probably had them for a week or two before I switched the insoles. Like, I had kind of just gotten them, but I wasn't really wearing them because they weren't that comfortable. So when I did my insole swap-a-roo, they ended up working out great. So these leather boot breakers, they're what, like 3 mil thick or so. They fit great inside these Chelseas, and they're incredibly comfortable. Now let's talk about the sizing. So when you get a pair of the boot breakers, you're going to be sent these sheets of paper. And these are essentially, you can see it's the sizes of the boot. So what you do is cut the piece of paper to the size of the boot. Then you take the cut piece of paper and put that inside your boot. If that lays flat without bunching up, you then take your insole and you will match the insole up to the piece of paper and cut the insole to the size of the boot. What that's doing is you're making sure that whatever size you cut the insole to with the piece of paper, the paper's going to fit in your boot, so you're cutting the insole to the proper length. If you cut the insole first, say I cut this to size 8.5, and then I immediately cut my insole to a size 8.5, now it's too small. Well, now I just ruined this. So what I do was I would take the paper, maybe cut it to a size 9, lay the paper in the boot. If that's laying flush inside the boot, I will then cut the insole to the size 9. I'll lay it up against the cut piece of paper, and I will trim the insole down. If I need to go down a little bit more, I trim the piece of paper. That way you're not ruining the insole. And if you need multiples, they did send me 2. So even though your foot is generally a little bit different size, the boot should be made to the same length and width. So what you would do is just take your insole once it's cut, you cut one, flip it around, cut the other, and then you can put them in your boots, and you should be completely fine, because these are, well, I mean, they're a little contoured now because they've been in my feet, but when they come, they're perfectly flat, so you can just cut them both with the same piece of paper. And I didn't look on the site, but I'm sure if it's not on there, you could probably email them. If you did mess these up and you needed one, I'm sure they can just email you a PDF or a JPEG, and you could just print out a new version. Or, I mean, most of us have like the home printer scanner combo. I would just get it, scan it in, just save it as a PDF or a JPEG, and that way if you need more, you can just print them on demand. It's just quicker. That way, you know, if you mess it up, you have it there. And I mean, it's a good template to have. You can use this further down the line for other insoles. So if you get a different pair of boots and you just kind of scan this in, you can just print it out and do the same process to maybe trim down a different pair of insoles for a different pair of boots down the line. So it's a pretty good resource to have on hand. Now, what I did was I just put both of these directly into the boots, and I found that they fit good enough. I didn't find that I had really any curling up on the sides. I mean, you could kind of see some curling on the leather one a lot, but that's because my foot kind of sank into it. So while I probably could have trimmed these a little bit, it wasn't taking up that much room inside the boot that I think that I needed to trim them. Now, the Craft and Glories that I originally put the leather ones in, they're an 8.5, but I think they're a little bit longer than an 8.5. So I think these probably fit perfect inside that Craft and Glory boot. And I wore them in there for about a week before I swapped them over. So they was already starting to break in. My foot was already starting to sink in. Now, I do think the Chelseas run a little bit smaller than the Crafting Glories did. But by the time they got into this boot, they were already starting to be broken into my foot. So I slid them in and they fit in here perfectly. So I did not trim either of these insoles. I did the same thing with the foam. I put it inside the Iron Ranger, and you can kind of see there's a little bit of fold going over here on the toe. And what I think that's from is when I was just kind of pushing it up, I think I just rolled it and I squished it under and my foot just sat on it, because I did not feel at all like these were taking up any room, any extra room that I needed. Like you could see there's maybe a tiny bit of fold on the heel. That's probably where it bunched up a little bit in the heel. But overall, the way that these came to me, they fit inside my 8.5 boots perfectly. So I did not trim either of these insoles. I just slid them in, and I had all intentions of trimming them if I needed to. I just wanted to see how they fit first, and they both just happened to fit fine for me. So I did not do any trimming. But really, I was surprised at how well and how much more comfortable the Iron Rangers fit putting this in immediately. Again, I thought it was going to take a couple of days, and I noticed that they'd feel a little bit different, a little bit more comfortable. But really, I put it in the boot, I put it on, I walked around, and like it was immediate. I can already tell that they were more comfortable. And by the time I put these in, I did have these boots for a couple of weeks. I had already been wearing them because by the time I reached out to Rose Anvil and we kind of talked back and forth, I did purchase the boots. I did buy these myself. They arrived, and I had already been wearing them for a couple of weeks, and then they came, so I already had a good idea of how these were fitting and feeling, and then I added the boot breakers in, and they immediately felt better. And I will say, throughout the testing, I did take them out for like a day or two here or there and wear them with and without, and you could still feel that they were more comfortable with the Rose Anvil boot breakers inside them than they were without. So I continued to wear the 2mm foam Rose Anvil boot breakers inside my Iron Rangers, and I'm going to put, this one has it in still, I'm going to put this one back in this boot once I'm done with this review and continue to wear these boots with these insoles. And as I said, I did remove the Rhodes insoles from this, and these are just the straight up insoles inside these Rhodes Boon Wedge Chelseas now, and these fit great. So a little swaparoo. And sometimes, you know, when you get a pair of boots, an insole swap is something that you sometimes have to do anyway. The insoles that come in the boots aren't always going to be the most comfortable. Maybe you need an ortho and you got to swap them out no matter what. But, you know, doing a little bit of insole swaparoo with a couple pairs of boots, I found that the leather boot breakers work perfect for me inside these Boon Chelseas, and I just put the Boon Chelsea insole inside those Crafting Glories. So it ended up working out perfect. I got both pairs of boots to fit me great, and I'm still getting to use and test the leather Rose Anvil boot breakers. But the Rose Anvil foam boot breakers come in a 2mm, a 4mm, or a 6mm version. This will allow you to dial in your fit, whether you're using them to aid in breaking in a pair of heritage style boots, or you want a little bit thicker foam insole to just replace the insole that's already in your boot. You have options, and all of those sizes come in at $25 USD. Where the Rose Anvil leather boot breakers come in a thin, that is about 2.5 to 3mm thick, a medium that is 3.5 to 4mm thick, or a thick that is 4.5 to 5mm thick. Again, so you can help to dial in your fit depending upon your personal needs for your boot insoles. And all of the leather boot breakers come in at $29 USD. So I want to briefly talk about price here. The foam, regardless of what thickness you get, are $25 USD. The leather, regardless of what thickness you get, are $29 USD. So in my initial unboxing and first impressions video, someone commented like, why would I spend $25 on a pair of insoles when I can get a $2 pair from Amazon? So I kind of like, I was taken back for a second. Of course, I went to Amazon and I found a pair for like $4.50 or something like that. It was the cheapest pair that I can find on Amazon. And then my reply was something along the lines of, you know, why would you buy a $2 pair of insoles? They're going to give you zero comfort, they're going to give you zero support, and they're just going to wear out rapidly, like ridiculously fast. So the cheapest fairly good pair of insoles, at least with my personal experience, were like some Dr. Scholl's. And a quick Amazon search, they were like $20 to $50 depending upon what type of insoles you bought. If you got like orthopedics, and then if you need like actual orthopedic insoles, your price is going to skyrocket. But, you know, $20, same ballpark. And I will say this thread, it grew. I did go back and check again. I think I saw a pair on sale on Amazon for like $15 for Dr. Scholl's. And at one point I commented like, yeah, the cheapest insoles that I bought were like probably a pair of Dr. Scholl's I bought at like Walmart for like $20. And someone's like, oh, that's suspect. We're not talking about Walmart here. We're talking about Amazon. And to be honest, we can be very interchangeable with Amazon and Walmart products, most of which are on the same caliber of quality. And I'm talking about one brand that is available at both Amazon and Walmart, and I personally walked into a store and bought a pair of insoles because I needed them for a pair of boots. And while I found them at the time, they were probably in a pair of skate shoes, not a pair of boots. But I found them to be comfortable enough at the time. When those shoes wore out, they got thrown out with the insoles in them. I didn't save those insoles. They were good enough to wear, but they weren't good enough to keep. I'm not going to throw these out. I'm going to keep these, especially since the leather are now molded to my foot, so I know that these are going to fit fine. And if I do get another pair of pesky heritage boots down the line, I have these 2 mil thick foam boot breakers. But that price is so similar. Like, even if you got that pair for $15, that was on sale, you're talking $20, $25 for any decent pair of insoles to just throw on a boot or shoe. So the price point I find to be more than fair. You're getting something that is, it's American made. They had the dies cut. I think they might cut these at the Rose Anvil shop in Utah. So like, these are cut from leather and foam from in Utah with a press and a die. They just kind of stamp it down and they cut them out. So I don't know if they're made to order, if they carry stock. Regardless, they're American made products and they're fairly priced. And this was specifically designed for this little 2 millimeter thick, specifically designed for a boot such as this that is notoriously known to have a difficult break-in period. So they made these, and then by request, people requested they make a leather version. So they're like, yeah, we have the dies. They use the same dies. They have the press and they have the leather. So they just went ahead and made a leather version because people wanted it. So just because you might think it's too expensive, next time you need a new pair of insoles for any boot or shoe, when you hop online or go into a store to try to buy a pair, you're going to see they're about the same price. And if you're the guy that I don't remember your name that was saying I can buy a pair in my grocery store for $12, okay. I mean, if you say so, I personally never looked for shoe insoles in a grocery store. I get that they probably would be in a pharmacy area, or either in the pharmacy area of a grocery store, because some of them still have them, or the pharmacy aisle, with your shampoos and home goods, they have basic necessities there. Sure, maybe you can find a pair of insoles there for $12. I mean, if you want to get them, go ahead and get them. They're not specifically made to aid in the breaking in of notoriously difficult heritage style boots, or they're not going to be a veg tan leather, and I'm sure they're 100% not made in America for $12. So price point, I think, is more than fair for what you're getting. This is a product that was kind of thought out specifically, again, for pesky boots, and then by request they went ahead and made the leather versions, and my experience has been positive with both versions. They have worked out well for me. I didn't need to trim them down. They fit inside both of my pairs of 8.5 boots, no problem. And yeah, I'm happy for the product. I'm grateful that I was able to break in, or I'm still not broken in, but help to break in my Iron Rangers with a little bit more comfort, so my feet weren't crying and screaming. Because, I mean, I'm in my boots sometimes 12, 14 hours a day, depending upon what I'm doing. And while I do work at a desk, I am also a corporate videographer, so I'm oftentimes in the studio or out on a lifestyle shoot, so I'm running around on my feet wearing a pair of boots. So helping my feet stay a little bit more comfortable while I'm running around on a shoot, that's a plus. So my experience has been incredibly positive with the Rose Anvil boot breakers. They are a great product, well thought out for what they were initially made for. And then the afterthought, which was requested, is working out really well for a boot that I wasn't really satisfied with because the insole that came in it was not comfortable. Now they are very, very comfortable. So if you're looking at them, pick up a pair. They are reasonably priced for what they are, and I think you will be happy with the results, much like I was. So if you like this video or any of my other videos, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Smash that big red button and ring that bell right next to it so you get notifications the next time I post a brand new video. Good night.